my presentation, for those who don't remember from last time. So COVID-19 affects every age group, demographic, ethnicity. It affects all people across all spectrums. So how we give out the vaccine when it eventually arrives is important. We want something that's fair, but we also want something that's most effective. And so we need a way to determine how are we going to give out these vaccines? What is the best way to do that? So my solution was to come up with a vaccine visualizer tool, which allows you to both select your strategy and pick different ways of distributing the vaccine. So using different demographics, picking different distribution rates, but also the tool allows you to see in real time how well it's working and allows you to learn from your mistakes as you use it. So if you can see my screen here. So first I select where in the United States I want to use it. So let's just say I want to use Arkansas. And I choose not to use current infections. I set my vaccines distributed per month to be 1,000. And my current strategy is to use the essential workers first. They get the vaccine first. So as I move my slider, I can see that the number of people who become infected, and I can see the number of people who become vaccinated over time. And I'm using a SIR model to determine this, which I go into another slide. And so as I use this model, I can see, okay, after a year, here's the number of people who are going to be infected. Here's the number of people who will be vaccinated. And if I want more information on my strategy that I've tried out here, I can click this little box and it'll tell me more based on the inputs that I gave it initially. So I'm able to successfully bring down my state's infection rate. But one area where my strategy could have been improved is I could have increased the number of vaccines per month. So currently less than less than a very small percentage of people in the state are getting it per day. So I could up that, let's say, to 100,000. And I can also use real-time data from the IHME dataset. So I can also include current infection rates. In Arkansas, I can update my model. And it's incredible. As I've updated my strategy, I've been able to bring down my infection rate much faster than before, which is great given that my state in the real world started off with more than 90% of the state's ICU bed capacity being full. But my vaccines per day distribution is still small. It's less than, less than 100% per day of the state's population is getting the vaccine. So there's still some room for improvement there. I could also use this in other states like New York. And maybe try out people who are in the minority demographics first and try out 3,000 vaccines a month using real-time data. And at some point within the year, if I had 3,000 vaccines distributed per month, I would have enough people recovered that we could develop a herd immunity. So how am I doing this? Well, from the technical aspects, I'm using the Google Maps API and Jupyter. I'm also using data from multiple US sources in order to aggregate all of this and then put it together in this visual format. But the model I'm using is an SIR model. So what I'm using here allows me to look at the population in terms of 3 different groups: the infected group, the recovered group, and the people who can still get sick, the susceptible group. And I take the people who can fit into those groups, I look at those and create a rate of change for each of those groups, and then over time amend them so that I can see how well my vaccine is moving, or how well my population is developing herd immunity or how the vaccine spreads over time. This takes into account a transmission rate and a recovery rate. So when you quote an R naught for a virus, you're taking the ratio of the transmission rate to the recovery rate. And that's being related to in this model that I'm using here. So when asking the question, what's most effective, I also tried, since this uses ordinary differential equations, I also tried in Python to model out on a state-by-state basis how effective each of these strategies are. And what I was able to arrive at is that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Since each strategy employs a different size of a different group of people, or a different proportion of each population. So the number of people who are essential workers in one state might be a smaller proportion in another state. And same for number of wealthy people or a number of people who are in a certain minority group. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all situation. But what I did arrive at is trying to find the group that is the largest initial group allows us to reach herd immunity faster than if we went with some other group. So if the essential worker group is the largest group in the state, you want to vaccinate that group first rather than vaccinating a smaller proportionate group. And so some interesting takeaways that I had from working on this is that there is not one good solution, just a series of bad ones. So while one solution might work for one state, it might not necessarily work for another state. There's also multiple definitions of best. So while one group might prioritize having fewer deaths, another group might prioritize reducing the spread or the R naught value for that given area. And that's what I've got. Thank you.